Die of Death is an asymmetrical game released on March 7, 2025, made by Sauce Python. He was primarily working on a boss rush action game called Outlaws of Robloxy at the time he released Die of Death, just to make fun of other asym games. However, after people unexpectedly started flocking to it, he eventually abandoned Outlaws of Robloxy and focused on Die of Death. For those who don't know what an asymmetrical game is, it means that it's a game where the experience of each player will differ. Die of Death is the type of asym where one player is chosen to be the killer while the rest of the players, the civilians, try not to die of death during the pursuit. Despite being a really simple concept, it avoids feeling repetitive with what it adds onto this genre of game. The civilians at the start of every round receive 3 cards that each have 2 abilities. Every ability is unique and serves its own purpose. Some can be used for offense, survival, and for support. As of the patch update, there are 11 abilities and 2 synergies, but to be brief, I'll just talk about some of the more commonly used ones. Block. What do you want me to say? Go block the killer's attacks. It gives 10 HP, a speed boost, and knocks the killer's abilities if you used it right. This also killed Void's worst nightmare. The 10 HP you get can be really useful, as most killers do 20 or 25 damage, meaning if you're left on 20 HP, getting a successful block can make a huge difference. Revolver. It's a gun. What do you want me to say? Go fill those killers up with lead. Lots of killers can be shot while trying to use their abilities. Pursuer when he re-emerges from his stalk, or when he tries to howl. Badware and Artful when they try to do, well, literally anything. And Killed Void when he places down his killbots and or tries to fly. Punch. It's a punch. What do you want me to say? Go KO those killers. The stuff I said about when to shoot the killers with revolver also applies here, so go bully those evil guys. Caretaker. You take care of your teammates by healing them for 20 HP. Bonus pad. It gives a speed boost to you and your teammates upon stepping on it, so be sure to place it on looping spots, intersections, or paths you see your teammates taking. Care pad. Care pad is one of those aforementioned synergies. Having both bonus pad and caretaker replaces your bonus pad with a care pad that heals teammates. Just put this thing somewhere visible but far from the killer, ideally close to an escape route just in case the killer comes, because your patients will probably be low on health. Taunt. It makes you stand still and creates a hitbox in front of you. If the killer gets hit by it, then the screen is obscured with an image of you laughing at them.
Yeah, come get you, freaking wuss!
Banana peel. You pull out some sort of gun and launch a banana peel a short distance in front of you. If you see a killer coming your way, you can block off a path with a banana, or, if you want to be a team player, you can intervene when someone's being chased by getting real close to the killer and firing a banana right at them. Although this is a bit tricky given how awkward using the banana offensively is. Now, let's get on to who you'll be using all this stuff against, the killers. These unique and lovable goobers are all fun to play. No, wait, who's this guy? Let me just, I'm just gonna get rid of that. Anyways, as I was saying, these guys are all fun to play as, each with their own unique playstyle. Pursuer is an apex predator of unknown origins. His playstyle is that of the basic rushdown killer. He's fast with a good amount of stamina, with 3 abilities to help him out. He has Cleave, which is just a basic attack that gives you a little bit more reach and a bit more damage. Howl makes you stand still for a few seconds and slows down all the survivors around you. Stalk gives you invisibility and a speed boost, whilst also revealing the locations of the civilians. Be sure to re-emerge out of sight of any revolvers, punches, and taunts, because they will mess you up while you're stuck in your re-emerging animation. Pursuer is kind of like white bread. It isn't the most interesting, but it's still nice to play as him. Going up against him isn't that bad either, as his abilities aren't too powerful. Badware is the next killer, and he's a sentient computer virus with ambitions for world domination. He is a snowball killer, which means he gets more powerful over time if played correctly. Unlike Pursuer, however, Badware is pretty slow. Even with the high 120 stamina you've got, you're gonna struggle catching up to survivors. Don't worry, however, as you can place computers around the map, which, if you're close enough to it, make you more than fast enough to catch up to those civilians. This paired with the aforementioned 120 stamina can make landing hits on those civilians an absolute breeze. Put these things around past civilians frequent, loops, and intersections. But be careful, you might have to be on guard duty for a while, as they might try destroying your computers. Badware is helpless without those things, so do not, under any circumstance, let them do it. Vault is your next ability, and makes you stand still for a bit, whilst also making a very recognizable sound effect. After this, you charge forward, making any civilian hit by it ragdoll. Starts off only dealing 10 damage, but each computer makes deal an extra 5. Because of this, it's only suggested to use this when you have at least 4 computers placed down. Then at that point, it's worth using. Rift makes you teleport to a computer and gain a short speed boost at the cost of destroying it. This is just used when the civilians are about to destroy a computer of yours, while being a fair distance away from you. This makes sure that even if they destroy one of your precious devices, you can still land a few hits on them. Badware can be a bit tricky to get used to, having to manage chasing while placing down computers and guarding them. But it's a real blast when things work out. Going up against him isn't too bad either, as you just need to make sure to get rid of his computers while he's only got a few down, as he only starts dominating when the map is covered with them. Barely finishing destroying one of his computers while he's just a few steps away from you is pretty fun. Harken is the next killer, and she's a construct from another dimension. You might be saying, how did she get here? Well, some scientists goofed up and made a way for foreign creatures to get into our world and start slaughtering us. You know, that sentence can be used to explain what? Like 50% of science fiction?
Oh no!
She gets enraged by noise, as in her universe, noise is a bad thing. In game, this just means that when civilians use any ability, it charges her noise meter, which when fully charged, makes her do 25 damage and increases her speed considerably. Agitation is just a basic ranged ability that does 15 damage. It can go through walls though. Tango makes Harken throw a javelin at someone. Upon landing said javelin, they are yanked towards Harken and it will take 25% more damage. This ability also gives Harken 50 HP, so landing these will be essential as she has the lowest HP out of all the killers, that being a mere 400. This means that Harken can die despite being the killer if there are enough competent revolver users on the civilian team. If the civilians aren't using enough abilities to fully charge your noise meter up, you can always just generate some on your own. Immolate has Harken, well, stab herself with her own javelin. This causes her to scream out in pain, thus generating free noise for you. Although it does take away 100 HP from you, which is as bad as it sounds. Dodging punches and revolvers is a necessity if you want to succeed as other killers, but for Harken, it's a necessity to just survive, as the time you're stunned can lead to the civilians landing even more hits on you. Although I have the least playtime on Harken, I still enjoy her gameplay. I think she's really fun. Landing hits with Tango and seeing the little civilians get flung towards me is pretty funny. And dealing with her as survivor isn't too bad. Well, unless the Harken player is experienced, then the entire server dies. Overall, a very cool killer. She has the potential to wipe out the entire civilian team or get shot to death by the revolvers. Kildroid is the last killer, and is he dual wielding bazookas? Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have a killer that just shoots the survivors. It's amazing, I know. Made by the government to stop all crime. He escapes the facility he was being tested at after misidentifying every human being he encounters as a criminal. And now he's on a mission to wipe out every quote unquote criminal. Unlike other killers whose main attack is a basic melee swing that deals 20 damage, Kildroid has Eject, which after slowing down and making a sound cue, fires a rocket that on impact explodes, dealing 25 damage to the area around it in a sphere. This seemingly minor increase in damage allows you to kill survivors in 4 hits instead of 5. Problem is, hitting your rockets is harder than landing your hits as other killers, because you have to account for the civilians' movement, the time it would take for your rocket to reach them. If you thought getting used to Badware was a bit rough, Guildwide is like tumbling down off a mountain. If the civilians are next to any walls, you can hit those and have the explosion hit them. But this isn't enough and you're eventually going to have to land direct hits on them. I can't give much advice other than get good, I suppose. What if you can't land direct hits? Because the civilians keep hiding behind walls. Well, that's why Killjoy does flight. After standing still and a short sound cue, you can just fly over that wall and fire a rocket down at them, blowing the civilians' minds. Next ability is Deploy. You can drop a killbot to its location, and if the survivor stays too close to it, it'll blow up dealing 25 damage. You can use this to block off paths civilians may take. Detonate is the next ability, and just don't use it, man. It does the same damage as your regular attack, but at the cost of 125 HP. I know Kildroid is one of the more tanky killers and isn't at risk of dying in a match, but the 125 HP for a mere 25 damage to civilians simply isn't a good trade. The only times I've seen Kildroids use this is at the end of the match, where they use it to kill themselves to give the match a goofy end. For counterplay, Block absolutely bullies Kildroid. The sound cue Kildroid makes every time he tries to fire makes his attacks very predictable. Experienced Kildroid players may try missing on purpose or suddenly switching targets to bait out the block from the civilians that do have the ability. Overall, he's a very manageable killer for both the player using it and the players being pursued. If you're the Kildroid player, there will most likely never be a bad match for you, given how good he is. And as a civilian, you just need to practice dodging and picking the right places for chases, like areas with high walls, which might be able to impede his flight. Civilian and killer gameplay aren't the only fun and interesting things though. The soundtrack is great too. There's a lot of solid tracks with a few select masterpieces I like to show. While we're on the topic of music, if you like a killer but don't like their chase theme or appearance, you can always purchase skins. There's tons of them and they're all amazing, each with their own unique and well composed songs. Another thing that's really neat is map hazards. In some maps, an event happens that influences the map. For example, on base plate, the map starts off with a huge valley in the middle you can walk inside of, but halfway through the match it fills with water, leaving anybody in there to drown to death. I like the idea of the map changing over time and us having to adapt or make use of it. For example, if I'm badware, I can potentially bolt into a civilian, thus pushing them into the water and drowning them for an easier kill. Or on the temple map, where a giant boulder eventually rolls through the river. I can stun the killer with a punch or gunshot, then watch as the thing crushes them while they're stuck on the bridge. Overall, another great addition to an already great game. If the different maps, random abilities for the civilian team, and different killers each match don't give you enough replay value, then maybe this will. The special rounds. These are all incredibly wacky. For example, Die Nation. Everybody becomes a killer and you have to fight each other to the die of death. Gunslinger. All the civilians get revolver and has to hunt the killer down. They also deal double the damage. All of these special rounds are fun in their own unique way. Except Evil Scary. That one kinda sucks. Evil Scary is an unkillable entity that instantly does 100 damage to someone upon touching them. This is supposed to be balanced because Evil Scary can also target the killer. But Evil Scary is 90% of the time something that helps the killer, as the civilians usually have less movement options and run out of stamina faster. Speaking of sucking, this is where things start getting worse. We'll start with the minor issues and progressively get to the worst things. I know graphics aren't everything, and Die of Death doesn't exactly look bad, but I just feel like everything is so plain. It doesn't have much of an art style to it other than, I don't know, squares. Baseplate literally just has gray as its theme. I'm not joking. That's the entire theme of the map. I don't know what to say, just look at it. Okay, now we're getting to the more serious problem. Die of Dev has perfectly honed in on balancing killer and survivor gameplay, making both as fun as possible while still remaining fair. If you use your abilities at the wrong time as killer, the survivors can punish you with a stun or taunt. If you fail to properly use your abilities as survivor, you're going to be left standing there to get hit by the killer. All is nice and fair. Yet they completely forgot to make who you're going up against fair. There simply isn't any matchmaking at all, and for a game as balanced as Die of Death, it's shocking that they just don't have one of those important things for balancing. Imagine logging into chess.com. You're feeling good after winning a match against someone of a similar elo, and then you're put up against Magnus Carlsen. Yeah, Die of Death is kinda like that. I know a guy named Jeff who has 10 days of playtime on the game, and whenever he gets into any lobby, the entire server starts panicking. And I don't blame them. He just server wipes whenever he becomes killer. This lack of matchmaking will most likely leave new players dissatisfied, as they're probably not going to be very happy when they die after just one chase with the killer who has, like, 10 days in the game. While my complaint about this might be a slight over exaggeration, is you can always just join another server that suits your skill level, I feel like that shouldn't be something the player should do and instead be automated. Anyways, that should be about all of the cons Die of Death has, I think. Pretty sure I covered everything. I mean, there's nothing else to talk about, right? What else could I possibly say? There's literally nothing left for me to talk about. Fine, I'll talk about him! Artful is a French magician and a French boy failure who went nuts and started killing people with his French wand when he got bananas thrown onto his French stage. His real name is like John Cheese, by the way. And did I mention he was French? Yeah, so the main issue with this guy is the fact he only has 90 stamina. Even if you're chasing after a revolver who has less stamina than other civilians, you're not going to be able to catch up to him or anybody with how many times Artful has to stop and use his bronchodilator to ease his asthma. Even if you're lucky enough to land a hit on the civilians, despite how slow you are, you only deal 20 damage. You might be saying, well, that's how much damage all the other killers do. What's the issue? Well, you see, you won't have a hard time landing multiple hits on the other killers. With Artful, however, it might as well be a Christmas miracle. I feel like you should do the same 25 Killjoy does, since both have their difficulties hitting the survivors. Killjoy with having to account for the trajectory of his rockets, and Artful with his legs getting sore. Again, you may say that he has such low stamina because he needs to trap the civilians first. Then, when they're cornered by his walls, he won't have any difficulty hitting them. And I'd say, yeah, that checks out. If you know where to place your walls, you won't really suffer as Artful. You can actually rack up kills pretty easily. On some maps. Artful is just so map dependent. That's his issue. If you get a map with ample amounts of free open space where the civilians are free to roam around and graze on the fresh green grass, you just lose. The only thing that can really help you here is your copyright ability, which makes you place down these floating music boxes, which slows the survivors down considerably if they're next to them. This means that you don't really have to block off paths anymore and can just place these down. Problem is, can only lock onto one person at a time, meaning if someone on the team has a brain, they can just redirect its focus to them so the guy you're chasing can get away. Okay, well, there's repurpose. You can repurpose a wall to make it into a throwable projectile that ragdolls civilians, or use one of your music boxes and use it as a speed boost to catch up to the survivors. I admit, these things make Artful a somewhat viable killer on the more open maps, with repurposed walls making doing damage easier and repurposed music boxes making chases doable. But at that point, why don't you just play as any other killer but Artful, who is just acceptable at best? He is such an unfortunate stain on what should otherwise be a perfect roster of killers. And to add salt to injury, he only has 680 HP, meaning that whenever he slows down to do the abilities he needs to use, the civilians will absolutely take this opportunity and if there are enough revolvers and punches present, Artful can genuinely just die. At least as Harken, you can regain your HP if you're good enough with landing your tangos. But Artful just has to accept his fate. And then to put banana on injury, if you leave someone with banana peel for last man standing, you just lose. That's it. I don't have much to say. That's legitimately what happens. The peels no longer make you slip, but they launch so much farther and do damage and has close to zero cooldown. Basically, they gave the banana civilian a machine gun. This is Artful's execution. Now, I won't dunk on a killer without suggesting any solutions. As I mentioned before, Artful is as bad as he is because some maps simply don't account for his existence, making playing as him on them utterly miserable. If they simply added more areas where Artful can trap civilians in with his walls, it'd be fine, as long as it's not so bad that the civilians can't go anywhere without being trapped. A good example would be Teapot Paradise. There's enough places for your walls to be useful whilst not having too many to the point that it's unplayable for civilians. I had fun playing as Artful on this map. This made me understand what he was meant to be. This last bit of the video may have made Artful look like the worst killer in any ASIM, but he isn't that bad, unlike what other people claim. He's just mediocre. But a mediocre killer in this game, where everyone else is fun and balanced, is just such a sad sight to see. Die of Death is a definitive 9 out of 10. It's an extremely fun and unique experience that sets itself apart with what it adds onto the ASIM game genre, with mostly great balancing and only a few issues that are far from ruining your overall experience. Many people have talked about the hitboxes being an issue, mainly killer hitboxes being too big, but I haven't really encountered much of this during my 50 hours of playtime whenever I had good Wi-Fi. Hitboxes only really become an issue once you or your opponent has a high amount of ping. This is why on some clips you can see the hitboxes being really janky. I just have a really bad internet connection.
Please, I don't want to
Please,
see it.
being autistic.
Thank you. Please, we need to see this on the
Thank
platform,
you.
guys, please.
Thank you,
Please,
thank you,
please.
thank you, thank you, thank you.